Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review for This Is Us Season 6, Episode 11. And this is a reminder that we are all in this together. We are all going through all of the different emotions. This is a safe place for us all to vent, to feel sad. I still hope that there's a little bit of hope and happiness down the road on this show.
Oh my goodness, I cried my eyes out. I'm not gonna even lie. The last 10 minutes were just heart wrenching.
This is one of those episodes where it's sort of like in life, even when you know like a bad thing is coming and you try to prepare yourself for it and then it hits and it's so bad and you're like, why didn't I prepare for this? And it's like, you did. It's like, we all knew this was going to be a
Yes.
sad, devastating episode. It doesn't change how we feel now.
No, Matt even said that in a preview. You knew we needed to buckle up for it,
Yeah,
that we needed to be prepared. And as prepared as I was, I really wasn't. This one it was a hard episode.
I needed to buckle up, get a safety harness, wear like a protective vest, like all of it. It was a really well done episode, but
Oh,
that
yeah.
that doesn't mean that it wasn't a hard one to get through, a hard one to sit through, but we are going to talk about everything that happened here, all of the big events, the smoker gate that really wasn't that about the smoker. But before we get into it, hit that subscribe button because we are going to be here through the rest of This Is Us. And also check out our coverage of Killing Eve and Better Call Saul coming very, very soon.
Also, follow us on Instagram, Matt and Jess TV. Okay, so you mentioned Smokergate,
Yes.
so I'm gonna take my flowers right now because in the preview I said that I didn't think that Jack got his injury from the smoker. I said that he probably got it at the park, and he
Yes.
did.
I'm pretty sure I'm taking an L on something here, but the reality is I don't even remember everything I predicted.
Well, typically I'm taking an L. My theories are often wrong, so it was kind of nice to actually see that I was right about
Yes.
something. It doesn't happen very often, so
Well, take your
I'm
W
just
here.
kidding. Okay, I'm taking my W.
No, I'm really happy that you're right because I like how they handled this because I did not need to see like Jack be injured because of the smoker because of some act of like extreme negligence. And it's like I'm not going to say I appreciated what they did because it made me sad, but I could understand the series of events that led to this happening to Jack.
I will say that I like the way they did it because it was both parents' fault.
Yes.
Not just Toby, not just Kate, and that there's not just one person to really pile on. We had the situation where Kate had reminded Toby a couple times, listen to the gate, make sure that it clicks. You haven't done that. He's gotten out and into the house, make sure it clicks. Okay. So he puts Jack in his room, doesn't listen for the click. He gets out. However, Kate also allowed the front door to be unlocked and taught her toddler how to open the front door. I mean, when I saw that happening at the very beginning, I was kind of like, huh, I don't have any kids, but I feel like at 2 and 3, they don't need to know how to open the front door. But, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. I just found it odd as a non parent that maybe it was a bit too young to know how to get out of the house without supervision. I don't know. You guys tell me if there's any parents out there when your kids were 2 or 3. Is that normal? I don't know. Let me know.
I I have no idea either as another non-parent here, but I will say I agree. I think that I understood, and as a legally blind person, I even appreciate a lot of the things that Kate was doing in this episode to make Jack feel like he was independent, because that's something that a lot of people with blindness struggle with. Like, I still struggle with it now, but when it comes specifically to the idea of just the door being locked, I would say if Jack was maybe a couple of years older, I could understand it a little bit more. I think this was her perhaps going, at least in my opinion, going a little bit overboard with that she wanted Jack to be a part of every single part of the routine of going there. And I don't think she really thought through what one potential consequence of that could be.
Yeah, I also have to give Kate her flowers. I know there's lots of people that don't like Kate, and no matter what she does, you're gonna not like her. That's fine. there's things I like about Kate, but there's things that I don't like about Kate. This is one of the things that I liked about Kate because, obviously I know you and
Yes.
I know that Matt is very independent in a lot of ways, even though he is legally blind in one eye and almost completely blind in the other eye. He is very independent. He's able to get around on his own and figure things out on his own, and he has for a long time. And
Yeah.
the idea that Kate was trying to teach Jack from a young age, even when they had that fight, she's like, when he's 12, 18, 20, that's not the time. Like, he needs to learn where his shoes are. I thought, how he was able to be like, oh, these are the high tops. These are the short tops. These are my rain boots. These are the dress shoes. I don't like those. I was like, she has set it up very well for him. The door was a bit much,
Yeah.
but knowing how to get to the park and around the neighborhood, I think those things are safety measures. It doesn't teach him, for me, this is my opinion, to go to the park by himself. It teaches him to know his surroundings, know places that he goes to on the regular very well. So just in case something does happen, he would be able to be familiar with his surroundings.
And I think the other thing that's really kind of important about all of this and the stuff that Kate has not only taught Jack, but sort of taught everyone around Jack, is that I think that really proves to be essential in helping Jack be found, because there's only so many different places that he could be, and because Rebecca knows a big part of this routine, like, she's able to sort of piece things together, and I think because she's not in the same position as Kate and Toby, frankly, where she's got sort of a different emotional outlook and a different sort of situation going on, where she's able to sort of see the forest through the trees in this situation. And I've seen situations and heard of situations like this in the past, where there's this really emotionally fraught situation and somebody from the outside is able to be the Rebecca. So I really like how it's Rebecca who is able to sort of be like, okay, where are the boots? This means that he's gone to the park, and Rebecca just like running over there and finding. I've always loved Rebecca, but I loved Rebecca so much in that moment.
No, and I loved that for Rebecca because
Yeah.
she has been obviously battling, what's going on with her memory, and to be able to sort of have some critical thinking in that moment to piece things together, to be like, oh, right, the boots. Oh, right. He associates boots with going to the park. I know where he is. And having that bit of a win for her to feel like, okay, I'm still kind of able to think like this and put things together and problem solve things. I really like that she just is still having a couple wins here and there, even though later we saw that he fell at the park and he hurt his head. And later at the hospital, she had to ask Kevin for help
Yeah, and
filling out the forms.
I think though she can be happy with everything that she did, and I'm sure somewhere inside she is. I think more than anything, I think she's probably just happy that Jack in the end will be okay. Obviously, the scar sticks with him. The smoke that he saw was just the memory of that other part of the day with the smoker. Like, all of that makes sense. Nobody's gonna not go and buy a big green egg because of the events of this episode.
No, the thing is, Jack Damon is like what, like 2 or 3
Yeah.
in this episode. He's not a really reliable narrator. I
No.
mean, if we all kind of think back to when we're 2 or 3, what do we really remember, and how reliable is that memory? We only, remember pieces. It's hard.
Well, before we get to sort of the big cumulative argument between Kate and Toby at the end of this episode, I will say I appreciated that before a little bit of that, we had a scene with Toby and Beth, because I think it's good that the show sort of gave Toby, ally may not be the right word, but somebody who understood a little bit more of what he's going through, that she and Randall kind of were long distance for a little while, that she knows sort of the pressure of being married to someone within the big three. I even love the Toblerone nickname for Toby. Like, that just made me laugh. I thought that was just a really good scene.
The thing about that scene that kind of gave me pause, though, was she was saying, oh, we've done the long distance and this and that, whatever. And eventually she decided to move for him. where then Toby's kind of like, yeah, you decided to move for him, where he's back on this. It's expected that Kate has to move for him and that there is no reverse of that. We already know he gave her that ultimatum, you move here or else it's over. And we even heard at the beginning them having the fight where he's kind of like, how dare
Yeah.
you set down more roots and ask for a bigger position at your job? To which I have to be like, you just turned down a job in LA and you didn't tell your wife. So I'm sorry, you don't really have a foot to stand on there. Now you're both wrong.
The problem Toby seems to have here is the idea of choice. Like, somebody needs to legitimately want to make that change, and they need to be made comfortable to make that change. Like, Beth wanted to make that change for a number of different reasons, and he's not giving Kate any reason to want to make this change. He's just trying to strong arm her into doing something when we saw in this episode how important this park routine is and how she's setting up this life for Jack. I can't even imagine the amount of work that it would take to bring Jack into a different environment and basically redo everything that she has probably been doing with him for the past year.
Yeah, I think it's a listen, families move and stuff happens where kids move and they have to go to different schools many times in their lives. I think it is a bit more to consider when one of your children is blind and you are trying to teach them independence of where they are. And it's not saying that that can't happen in San Francisco, but it does then require Kate to probably have to, redo everything that has already happened. Plus she's giving up that everything that Jack has learned and the independence that he feels in his house and her job and being close to her mother who is battling Alzheimer's, and she's the next in line under Miguel as a power of attorney over her health, and all of this is to be just given away or has to be sacrificed for a job, which is something that can be had elsewhere. And that's always sort of been the argument. It's like, okay, here's the balance. So it's Toby's job, which is his happiness. Yeah. I understand. In this corner, it's also Kate's and her job for her happiness. But it's also Jack's independence and Jack having, he's at a specialty, school and help and all that sort of stuff, plus Rebecca and her failing health, plus a support system there of family that can help. All of that goes away if she moves out there.
It's hard to talk about the big argument scene at the end of this episode just because it just hurts my heart so much. And so it's like, here's what I'm going to try to do here is just, I'm trying to look at things. I know this is very hard given this episode, but I'm trying to look at things like this, that maybe these two, in the midst of this argument where they say a number of things to each other that I'm sure they would take back in other situations, but maybe they come out of this with the realization of, okay, we're not right for each other anymore, and that's heartbreaking, and that's sad, and it's difficult. But I hope that the show has this as sort of a big catalyst for the two of them realizing, okay, you know what? It's okay for us to move forward, pursue our lives in our own ways. What matters the most is that we show respect for each other, we care for each other, but we care for our kids. And I don't want this show to move forward where they're constantly having these arguments with each other, because I don't know what the point of that journey would be other than just make us feel really bad and not happy with either of these characters.
Yeah, I mean, this fight, it was hard, but it for the most part was very well done and reminded me a lot of the Kevin and Randall fight, where both of them said things that were out of line. Both of them were in the wrong with a lot of stuff, but both of them were in the right with some of the things that they were saying. And that felt very similar here with Toby and Kate, that they both said things that weren't right. However, they both said things that were right for themselves and where they feel they are in this relationship and in their lives. The part of this fight that I was kind of like, I really wish didn't happen, was having her brother step in, where Kevin's like, stop waving your finger in her face. I was just like, Toby hasn't crossed a line that you need to step in. He hasn't. Him, bringing up his finger, he's not hitting her or stepping towards her in a way like, is it disrespectful to put your finger up? Sure. Does Kevin need to step in for that? No, he does not need to step in for that. Randall also didn't need to step in for that. Toby wasn't going to do anything further than what was already happening, which was a heated discussion that needed to happen. They shouldn't have been there, and I wish that they weren't.
It felt a lot like This Is Us really wanted to like drive home this point that Kevin is driving Toby crazy, but it's like we already got that point. Like we got that point with pretty much everything else in the episode, and they did a good job even with that of sort of showing the multiple points of view at that Toby is frustrated, obviously, that there's this other person who in a lot of ways understands his family dynamics more than him because he's not even around. And it's like all of that was a given. All of that was understood. I understand the idea that, Kevin or Randall would want to stand up and protect her sister, but protect their sister. But that also sort of implies that Kate is incapable of protecting herself.
Yes.
And I don't really like or enjoy the implication of that at all. Like, Kate is strong, Kate is capable, she was holding her own with Toby just fine. And like you said, Toby wasn't going to cross a line any further than that.
No, after seeing her in the episode where she climbed the hill and decided that she wanted to put herself into a better position at work, I wanted to see the change continue in Kate, where she isn't sort of hiding behind her brothers or having other people stand up for her. She stood up for herself in that episode. She was standing up for herself just fine in this episode. She didn't need them to stand in. And I think they were also trying to show that it's always been on Toby's side of things, that he feels that it's him against the three of them, that because they're the big three, they were showing in the past as well, that the three of them all stand up for each other and the three of them are always going to be together, that being married into this family, you're kind of with all three of them. And so if you're going up against one of them or you're having a private fight with your spouse, you're not. You're actually going up against all three of them. And I think as adults, like, unless you really need to step in, like, they did not need to step in. And this was a missed opportunity for the show to show more growth with Kate, that she's made this decision. She's going to stay there, the bigger job. She's made the decision to have this fight with Toby, that they're going to go outside and they're going to have it out. Then let her have it out. And I'm kind of disappointed that it didn't play out that way.
Yeah, this is, I think, a really strong episode, but there's a couple of missed opportunities in here. Like, that is one of them. And the other one to me is just that so much of this episode, we got kind of follow-ups to the various things that happen in the Big Three trilogy. Like, we'll talk about everything with Kevin and Madison, and we've talked, obviously, about Kate and Toby most of this video, but it's like Randall goes on this whole journey on this past episode and decides, okay, you know what? I'm going to really pursue, this Senate campaign, and if I do this, I'm going to win it. And this made me really excited, but it felt like this episode massively shortchanged Randall, where all of a sudden he's just, Kevin's more or less his keeper, where he has to just go and drive him around. And it's like, okay, Randall doesn't get to tell anybody about what's going on with him or celebrate anything. He's just kind of there, and I love Randall, and that bummed me out.
I'll give it a little bit of a pass because there were some pretty serious issues going on in this episode, and they started pretty fast, where we revisited the leak that was going on that, Toby wasn't able to fix, and it got really bad and it started just leaking everywhere, bedroom, kitchen, everything, things started to unravel pretty quick. So, but yeah, let's talk about Kevin and Madison because this felt like they wrapped up that story. So we've got this situation where it looks like Elijah's going to propose, and at first it makes Kevin very like, no, this can't happen. I don't want this to
Yeah.
happen. But Randall does talk to him. It's like, well, you gotta not want it to happen for the right reasons. Not just because you're jealous or you feel like you're gonna get left out of that life or whatever. If you can answer the question now, do you love Madison? Okay. And the answer is yes, then, pick up the phone. And if not, we're gonna keep driving around. And he still didn't answer that question. So we got to the end of the episode. Madison kind of knows that it's coming. And I
Yeah.
mean, in honesty, most people kind of know it's coming because you usually have some of those talks a little bit early, like, how you feeling about this? Even early. And I know a lot of people are going to jump all over that to be like, they've only been together 6 months. It's too early. Things happen
Yeah.
and sometimes they really work out really, really well. I know people that have been engaged less time than that and it worked out for decades. So, sometimes you make a mistake. However, this situation, she brings it to Kevin's like, listen, I don't know if you want to hear about this, but I think he's going to propose. And if you really want to know how I feel about it, I really love him and I really hope that it happens for me.
If she's happy, she's happy. Like that's something that Kevin has to look at and be okay with in the end. And if he does, whether he loves Madison or cares about Madison or whatever sort of term you want to use for it, he should want to find a way to celebrate her happiness within himself and also realize that this is not an impediment on his own happiness. This is not a limitation when it comes to him being a father to the kids. The only thing that it's an impediment on is my desire to see Kevin and Madison together. And I don't know. This is okay. This is where I'm getting kind of confused at this point. So seemingly Madison and Elijah are on the road to something. They may not end up together. We never really know, but they're on the road. Cassidy and Kevin, it seems like they had a sort of big emotional revelation. And
Yes.
it doesn't seem like they're necessarily on the road to anything either. And we haven't even seen Sophie like in the present all season long. So what is going on?
And the last time we saw Zoe, she has moved
Yes.
on. So it's kind of like now we're really at this weird spot where it seems like, yeah, we haven't seen Sophie in forever. I am positive we're going to see her again. I mean,
Yeah.
it just feels like it's inevitable. She is part of the Pearson family, whether she's with Kevin or not. I think we're definitely going to see her at Rebecca's deathbed. She's a very important part of the family. She's known Rebecca like almost her whole life. I think she would be there. But, we just don't know what's going on with her. We haven't seen her in like a hot minute. The most we really saw was that Kate was like sending messages back and forth with Sophie. So we don't really know how much Sophie is still in Kate's life or not, or if they've been continuing to talk. Kevin's not really talking to her at all right now. Madison is seemingly moving on. The person that actually seems like the front runner is Cassidy. And I know that Cassidy kind of shut it off a
Mm-hmm.
few episodes ago and was like, nah, you're just not right for me at this point. We're sort of two people that have a lot of baggage, and together that's just like a no, no, no. But we've seen Kevin go on a journey where he has been more loving himself and healing within himself. And if that's the case, that opens the door for something different with Cassidy because now he is different.
I've said for a while that I'm team Kevin and Madison, but if he ends up with Cassidy, I'm not going to be mad. Like I think it could be a really good journey. I think it would be a really fun thing to sort of look back at and see where these two characters started and how they got to that point. All I'm going to say is that don't have him end up with just some like random person who we've like never met and then he just shows up in the flash forwards and is just like, hey, because then it's just gonna be like, okay, guys, come on, I know it's possible, but I'm gonna be salty.
Yeah, no, and it would be interesting because two of these love interests are people that he's been with like one time. They're
Yeah.
kind of like both one night stands, and they seem like they're sort of the two front runners, but I would love to see him with Madison, but I like all of the options of the women that he's been with. I will be happy as long as Kevin is happy, but I will say this. If it's Sophie, Sophie is owed a lot
Yes.
more than just Kevin showing back up. He can't just show up because he needs her for something or whatever. She has been put through a lot, and she is owed the better Kevin that is there for her instead of he needs something. That's what I'll say about that.
The only other thing I have to say about this episode is I love Drunk Rebecca so much. I want give me a full sitcom of just like Drunk Rebecca.
She's adorable. Mandy Moore is amazing. She deserves all her flowers for this whole season.
She really does. She was so great. Also, why are you restaurant? Why are you serving her all the drinks on the menu? I maybe it was a different way back when, but who cares? I don't know. They gave me Drunk Rebecca. I'm not mad about that, but we needed that after everything we got in this episode. But we will have more coming up soon. I feel like we're about to start really moving rapidly forward in time, so let's hope for some great things. Hit that subscribe button so you guys are here with us every single step of the way.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you here next time.